I want to talk about the process of creating a short documentary in just 2 days. 1 day of shooting, 1 day of editing. I did this for nearly 2 years straight to hone my filmmaking skills and still like to do this today whenever I need a creative burst. I'm going to use a film example that I posted earlier this week. It's a short documentary called A More Beautiful World, which is about an artist in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you can watch that first if you'd like to see the results at the start, or we can just dive right in. First, it's helpful to have a solid structure of a short documentary. There are a million ways to do it, of course. But for the type we're discussing today, a portrait of a person, these are the key ingredients. You need a solid 30-minute interview from which you'll pull your favorites, quotes to be in the 3 to 4 minute final piece. And a nice formula here for that final piece is an attention-grabbing intro quote.
We get so much training in being sort of cynical and defensive.
And then the introduction of the character, the backstory and process.
My name's Josh Story. I have a sculpture design and art studio called Boppo.
And then how and why they do what they do. What's their philosophy?
I use terms wholeness, harmony, and clarity.
And then finally, a leave them with something to remember quote.
And I'm trying to do my part to make the world the way I would like it to be.
And then 2 or 3 different scenes or locations to capture a variety of shots. Films that take place in a single location can become monotonous pretty quick, so try to have at least 2 different locations, preferably more like 3 or 4. And make sure to capture good natural sound, because that can be a huge help in the edit later on. And it also helps bring your story to life and immerse the viewer in the world that you're trying to create. So making a short documentary, step 1, find a subject. My wife is a professor of cinema studies at a university, and she says the question she gets asked all the time by her students is, how do you even know what to film? And that's a good question. If you don't have a story to film and all you do is film your cats, then all you will get really good at is filming cats. So you have to find subjects to film in order to improve whatever aspect of filmmaking you want to improve in, whether that's documentary, narrative, music video, or commercials. No matter what genre, they all tell stories in one way or another. A collection of shots of cats or your neighborhood is not often a story. It sometimes can be, but rarely is. A quick aside, there actually is a great documentary about cats called Kitty, so I guess you can just film cats. But it's better to be with intention. So I guess you can just film cats. Forget what I said. So how do you find someone to film? The most important thing is to ask yourself what you're interested in. What do you like? What do you want to film? At first, for me, it was anything that was outside, sports, adventure, nature. But then I shot a few videos on artists and chefs and realized I very much enjoyed filming both of those as well. They're highly visual and they're often about people who are passionate about what they do and have great stories. I also highly enjoy filming musicians and music for the same reason. But no matter what it is, make sure it's something you actually want to film. And once you have that figured out, just start a Google Doc and start making a list of everyone you can find in your local area. Put in their name, their contact info, if you can find a website, anything that is pertinent to, the type of people you want to film. It doesn't have to be super extensive, but see if you can locate 5 or 6 people who seem interesting to you upon first glance. Then just message them. Tell them what you're doing. See if they're interested. You can have a short introductory call with said person, but even this isn't always necessary, as you can just plan the short shoot over email. If you do have a call, I would advise not doing a full pre-interview, as I find this often takes away from the more spontaneous nature of the interview on the actual day of filming. The second step is to film. For a short documentary, you can get a lot done in just a few hours. For much of my early work on my travel doc series, we often only had a few hours with our subject. So our goal was to try and get everything we needed in the shortest amount of time as possible. Then if we had more time, we could always expand upon what we've already captured. I like to structure my shooting day like this. When you first meet your subject, you just do a little meet and greet. Maybe spend 15-20 minutes just chatting with who you are going to film. I like to spend this time for them to give me a brief demonstration of what they do, where they work, how they like to work. If there's an artist like Josh, then they can show you around their studio and where they work so you can start visualizing the type of images you want to shoot. And then I do the interview. I try to keep the interview around 25 to 35 minutes depending on the person. There are a lot of YouTube videos and docs that heavily rely on interview shots, and while they are sometimes important to show emotion or to transmit information, I will often do my interviews as audio only, especially for short docs. And that's what I did for A More Beautiful World. But I'll have videos in the future about setting up interviews, lighting, and interviewing, so keep an eye on for that. A lot of folks will talk about not doing the interview first, but I like to do it right away for a few reasons. First, it is the story. It is probably the most important parts of a short documentary. If you don't have that, then you just have a collection of shots. Second, if you do the interview first, you'll already have a good idea of how the final film will flow. story-wise. And then you can shoot specific shots for what you know the subject talked about. Finally, I have found that if I don't do the interview first, the person I'm filming will be way more likely to talk to me while we are filming other scenes. And usually, I don't want them to talk to me. I want them not talking at all. I just want them doing what they do. And once they've done a 30-minute interview and you've asked them a bunch of questions, they are way less likely to want to keep talking to you. Nothing is more difficult than trying to edit B-roll when the person you're filming starts talking every few seconds. So often I like to use the line, act like we're not here. Do what you do and we'll film you. And doing the interview first allows that to be possible. Then you film a few different scenes. Once you've completed the interview, it's time to capture all the corresponding visuals. Taking a look at our short film, we really only had 2 locations. In Josh's studio, where he does a lot of his woodworking and finishing touches on his artwork, and then the area where he does a lot of the metalwork and welding. Both of these locations are actually within 50 feet of each other, so it took no time for us to move locations. And different locations can be as simple as 2 different rooms in the same house, or inside a house and outside the house. The key is to have a bit of variety so you're not just watching the same action over and over and over again. While filming these scenes, make sure you're building the edit in your head. Wide shot, tight details. Look for things that happen more than once and capture it in different ways so you can edit them together. You'll see that a few times in A More Beautiful World. We can, and probably will, do an entire video of how to cover a documentary scene, but it is key for a solid edit to get a wide variety of shots. Finally, with the interview in the can and having captured a few scenes of the person working or even just getting ready in the morning or hanging out with family and friends in the evening, the last thing to do is gather any archival material from the subject themselves. This can be photos of their work, videos of their day-to-day life, photos and videos of an event or a story they told you that you can't capture on camera because it's already happened. There are tons of different ways to use archival, and gathering as much as possible could be useful. So bring your computer or an external hard drive just in case they have that material on their laptops or phones while you're shooting. Now you've got enough material to actually make a short film. And time for the hardest part, but sometimes also the most fun, editing. Just kidding, it's never the most fun. Editing is a place where you can easily get bogged down, but it doesn't always have to be that way. If you follow this general outline for a short doc, you can quickly edit together a 3 to 5 minute film. Remember from before, it goes a bit like this. Start with an attention-grabbing introductory quote, and then you can come back and introduce the character, their backstory, and a bit of their process. And then really flesh out sort of their philosophy of why they do what they do, why they do it, how they do it, and sort of what their hopes and dreams are for the future. And then finally, leave them with a something to remember quote to close out the film. That's why I always start editing by putting down the interview quotes, the story. You'll be tempted to just play around with pretty footage, and that's fine for a bit, I always do, but I think it's key to start with the interview. If you start pulling selects from your B-roll, you'll do a lot of unnecessary work because you don't yet know the visuals needed to support the story. Whereas if you have the interview down, you'll know exactly what to look for when you start going through the rest of your footage. I would also try to get the interview called down close to the length you want the video to be. So if you're aiming for a 4-minute film, like in our sample video, then the first cut down the interview should probably be around 4, 5, maybe 6 minutes. And once you have the interview in place, it's time to start building scenes. And if you shot it well, this should be the most fun and easiest part of the process. I like to try and put together a nice process video no matter what I'm filming. For an artist, filming them working on a piece for an hour will undoubtedly yield some progress, so just make sure to show this progress as best as you can. There are lots of examples of this, so just watch as much as you can and then do it over and over again until you have a good feel of the best way to do it. Outside of the wides and tight shots, hands and faces, this is also a good place to employ slow motion to add some variety. And then also make sure you're using natural sound to transition from scene to scene. This may seem obvious, but I see so few filmmakers, especially early filmmakers, employ this technique. It's a great way to get you from scene to scene if you can hear the sounds of the world that your subject inhabits. You are more engaged and enveloped in the story. Try to attach the images with the voiceover. In the sample video, I tried to attach the slow motion shot of the smoke billowing up with his search of the ephemeral. Or when he discusses all the tools, I did a quick montage of all those tools. Or when he talks about where he gets his inspiration, I went into my drives to find corresponding nature and city footage. This helps expand the film's world so it's not just contained within the confines of your subject's life.
The way I would like it to be.
There you go. You got a full film in 2 days. Now you just go out and do it again. And again. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite process is for making films, and even post some of your work in the comments, and I'd love to check them out. Until next time,